Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberrg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Dr. Marla Goldberrg, and I'm here for our Halloween episode with psychic medium, paranormal psychologist, and investigator, Mary Marshall. I know you have many more credentials over that, but we'll just keep it just a little simple like that. I just wanted to get to the heart of the matter. So how are you?
I am doing good. Thanks for having me on. I just adore you. I just adore you. So I'm glad to be here.
I am too. I have to say, I've missed having you on. It's been probably about a year.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Time goes quickly.
It sure does.
I know there's more to that, but I'm just going to leave it at time goes quickly. So, Mary, you've been doing this for a minute or two. You know, you're psychic medium. You do investigations of the paranormal. You're a researcher. You're an enthusiast. But you're a researcher of not only paranormal, but ufology and cryptozoology. I want to start there for a second because many people don't know. I mean, ufology sort of spells it out itself, but cryptozoology, people may not be aware of. And people may also not really know the true definition of what paranormal is. So let's sort of dive in there.
All right, let's start with the what is paranormal, because here's what's interesting about that. I mean, here's the textbook dictionary definition. Any type of phenomena that can occur without current scientific explanation for it, that would be considered paranormal. With that being said, that pretty much encompasses everything. But when I originally had started getting involved with other than just like the ghost shadow entity type side of things, and getting into I've been doing this a bazillion years, but into the ufology side of things. And I remember going to MUFON and originally like speaking there and then talking to some of the people, and I encompassed them in the word paranormal. We're not paranormal. Yes, you are, because it doesn't matter if it's cryptids or if it's ufology for that matter. The true sense of the word is without current scientific explanation. And that's where you guys fall into. A lot of weird stuff happening. Might be some of it completely different, but nonetheless. And then one last thing on there I always want to add into, because I always say this during my classes too, because I teach paranormal studies, that pretty much most of what we consider, if not all of what we consider paranormal, is really quite normal. We just don't understand it yet. We just don't have that explanation. But a lot of it, this is how things work. This is how they run. These things happen.
And it truly does happen. And I know I looked up cryptozoology, and believe it or not, it has zipped out of my mind. So I'm throwing it back to you as to explaining what that is.
With the cryptozoology, it's really interesting. If you kind of look it up, I think by the definition of it, it's about unknown, more animals, creature type of things, where in the sense of where it has gotten to is involving a character, and creatures or beings like Bigfoot or Beast of Bray Road, those types of things. Thing is with those sound really strange and out there, but people are experiencing something. And this is, they have their stories and that they fit, Bigfoot or Dogman or those types of things. And that's not new. That goes back really to a long time. I mean, thousands of years in Native American cultures and other cultures around the world. So we're just kind of catching up with it here on the West.
There we go. And you've done documentaries about UFOs and light anomalies, et cetera, Bigfoot. Could you talk about the documentaries you've been in and where they can be found? If people want more
Sure.
information.
I've done well, there's going to be 4 soon, but I'll start with the 2 that are on the Wisconsin Bigfoot, basically. But I was out there for about 5 years with Jay Bachochin, but then he kind of continued on doing his thing. After so many years, you just start doing separate things again. But every once in a while, something will come up and he's like, well, if I need somebody to tear this apart and debunk it, it's going to be Mary Marshall. And that's how I came out as this special occasions as an investigator for him. Because he knows I'm tough. I'm really tough on that. There's like those two sides to me, but in general, where you can have your belief system and you can even know certain things or have gut feelings, but that's not evidential.
Right.
That's where my investigator side kicks in and says, okay, would this stand up in a court of law? Almost mentality, and then producing it. So we landed up doing that, and he had gotten a really good capture out of that. The first one was called Finding Jay. The second one, the first one, I'm just a commentator, I believe. I don't know. I don't remember. And then the second one, I'm both in the field and as a commentator. And that's Beyond the Kettle. Finding Jay
Okay.
Beyond the Kettle. Both of those are on Amazon. And then the other one, which will be coming out with a second one, possibly next year, is with Mike Ricksecker. Mike Ricksecker and he's like my paranormal. I always think of him my paranormal like little brother or something, because we think so much alike on these things. So he has one that's called oh my goodness, Shadow Entities.
The Shadow Dimensions?
The shadow. Thank you. I'm glad you have it in front
You're
of
welcome.
Shadow Dimensions. And that's but what it's on is kind of the first one, his journey. I love how he put it together, because he kind of brings in a lot of us as commentators from different aspects, talking about, is it something having to do with stack time? Is it having something to do with multiverse or dimensional, those type of things. So if you're looking for particularly the topic of shadow entities, but it's a really, I think, really great documentary. It's done as a docu-series. Right now, I believe that's on Tubi, and what's the other one? Tubi and Pluto, possibly. Some of those. I think it will be soon on Amazon, but right now it's free on Tubi as well. And then I think next year he's coming out with the second one on that. So yeah, I'm really happy to be part of those.
Do you also do cold cases with the police? Do you work with detectives?
I don't. I had a while back, I had started working on some missing person cases using the psychic mediumship portion of what I do. And, God bless the people who do it, because it is a very emotionally draining and difficult thing to do. And it just didn't feel it. Yeah, it just wasn't my thing. It's sort of like, I know this is going to sound strange to make this comparison, but it's sort of like people who uh, volunteer at animal shelters. Thank
Mm-hmm.
God for them. Thank God for them. I would go home in tears every day. I
Yeah.
couldn't I couldn't do it. So in that sense, just to kind of compare of how it happens. I mean, I'm going along and you're trying to find out like where somebody is and maybe what happened to them. And I'm going to be graphic for a moment, because this is the things that you would experience. And I'm feeling and seeing somebody like either at the point I was trying to figure it out, either did they get shot in the chest, or did they have like a massive, like widowmaker heart attack? There was just basically like this explosion.
Wow.
And so it's a very, like I said, thank goodness for the people who do it. I am not one of them. With that being said, I have not done this yet, but you'll be the first person to hear me say this out loud.
Oh, yay.
Is, is that one of the things I am considering is starting to do communication for people who are still living, but in comas or in complete paralysis where they can't communicate with their families.
So somebody might have had a stroke and they can't communicate any longer, or a
Right.
brain injury where
Right.
things might be
So
muddled.
they could
or
be
they will,
conscious or unconscious, but they're just completely unable to communicate, writing or eyes or anything. And I have been it's been in the back of my mind for a few years, and kind of drawn to that because I think, wow, because that's one of the things I like about the psychic mediumship is that I like to help people. What I get out of it, it makes me feel good, like I'm doing something useful. And for taking it into something like that, that would be so tremendously healing for both the patient, so to say, and the family. So I haven't figured out where I would go to do this yet or how to start this, but this is in my mind of doing it, because it brings me, that's what it's about. I like to be of service. And when I first started doing paranormal investigating, a bazillion years ago, long before all these kind of pay and play locations that you can go to haunted, you were
right.
doing home. And there wasn't so many investigators out there either. So you're doing home, you really were helping people. They were scared or, and so on and so forth. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of like with coming public in the last several years with the mediumship, it's kind of brought me full circle back to the beginning of paranormal investigating, of helping people.
So explain how the psychic aspect works with paranormal investigating so people understand the blending of the two.
Well, here's the thing. It can be different for every individual, every psychic medium. Because for so many years, I did not, except for a couple select people, like even out of my team, one person knew I was like psychic medium. I just didn't put it out there. And there was a lot of reasons for that. Some of them were, I was known as the science girl, in the field.
Okay.
And I'm teaching and lecturing and bringing in the sciences. And if I were going to the college and these classes where I'm teaching paranormal studies and say, oh, yeah, I'm a psychic medium, there's a lot of still stigma attached to that. And so I kind of kept it quiet. So going back to the investigating part, I would kind of use it privately, but I really find I can't do both successfully at the same time. And what I mean by that is if you have a team and you're a lead, you're walking in with equipment and you got to do this. Where do we put that? The camera goes here. No, those are different batteries. All
Right.
the logical,
The logistics of everything.
logistics, right? And you're going this, that. Now you're going through and people are coming up with these questions. It's a very, if you're doing it, really thoroughly, it's a very involved process as the lead. Now I will still have things happen and I still get, clairvoyance or knowing and those types of things. But if I go in, if somebody wants me as a psychic medium, I do not want to be heading up a team for an investigation. I want to come along as a member of that team so that I can just go kind of do my thing, get completely in the zone, and really get much better and more in-depth information because you're allowed to. You're not constantly being distracted from right, left brain type of, thinking.
Yes. Which is interesting. But and the other thing too is if you're the lead, they don't give you enough space in your mind to allow information to come in because you're being barraged with a bunch of questions and you have to be here and do this and do that. So it makes total sense where you wouldn't want to be a lead to be able to utilize the psychic medium aspect to the
Yeah.
information.
And to just make it stronger. And sometimes I will tell you, it's been interesting because I have done some other um, public investigations and went in with the psychic medium. And I'm still trying to find that balance of going into these events. How much input do they want me to have? Because a lot of them, again, this is their business,
Right.
having it come in. And how much do you want me? I don't want to take over,
You
and I
don't want to
want people
overshadow them.
right, overshadow. You want the participants to be able to have their own experiences and thought without over influencing. So I have to say, I'm still actually working a little bit on that balance of how much input during it.
But isn't it like the soul's journey? You're always in the process of the journey. So when you said you're still
Mm,
practicing that, you're in the journey, just like I'm doing my journey, and Joe Schmo
right.
is doing his, and Sally Sitter is doing hers, and it's just part of
Yeah.
the life process.
A lot of times
Mm.
I've done a few different approaches, and one of them sticks out. Which is a great haunted location, by the way, in Wisconsin, Baraboo, Wisconsin, Old Baraboo Inn. And so anyway, at this location, um, there was a couple different places. There was which is like the bar area, but where participants were, but there's also a back area that you have to kind of go around. So there was a psychic medium up there, and I was down here. And so I'm listening to the people, and I'm watching what they're doing, and they've got their equipment, and here's like here's a little baby doll, and they thought there was a kid there, we're going to play, and blah blah blah. And I just sat for a minute, or stood for a minute, and then sort of said, it's a boy, and he's about 7 or 8 years old. And I think if you got him some boy toys, he'd be a whole lot more responsive. He's talking about a car. Oh, yeah, we got that. And then, but then you sort of sit back again and let
Mhm.
them have some of, you know what I mean? Have their own experiences, because they're interacting with some of the technology, the equipment and
Right.
their feelings or spirit box.
I find this so fascinating. But before we go any further with more questions, what school have you implemented this paranormal studies program in?
Where I'm working now, I have been kind of doing exclusively as at College of DuPage in Illinois.
Okay.
And so I started out with it at a different college, and actually had put a whole program together. And about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago or something, there was a lot of changes in the management, the overhead for the whole college. That kind of affected my program. So I had, at the time, had been teaching there at COD, College of DuPage, and another college in another county, and then just sort of streamlined it down to College of DuPage at this point.
Now, is this something you could teach online, or do you
Yeah,
teach it online?
I do teach it online, so anybody can take it. They don't have to be in
Mm.
Illinois. It was interesting when it all kind of started with during COVID, instead of going in the classroom, of doing things online. And it was so funny because I remember just being like, "Ugh, I don't want to do this online." Like I'm a people person. I want to be able to see them, and I don't know. It just had a different feel. Now you couldn't get me to go back in the classroom, because here's the thing, and this is really kind of the really nice advantages. So I generally teach 7 and 9 p.m. in the classroom. By the time you get everything out, then inevitably people are going to come up and ask questions, or they want to tell you about their stories or something.
Right.
By the time I got out of there and then walked about 3 miles, because these colleges, the way they're laid out, to the parking lot where I was at, um, maybe not 3, but like 2 miles, and get to the car, I was getting home after 11 p.m. Now, 9 9:10, 9:05, 9:10. It's like, thank you, everybody. See you next week. And then I go and get my snack and put my jammies on, and I'm done. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like I'm done by 9:20. I'm in my pajamas and I'm ready to have my snack and watch TV and go to bed.
You know what? I'm with you because I'm not a night person. So when I do things at night, it's really challenging on my system.
Yeah, because you have to have that energy up too.
Right.
And
Yes.
so
Well, to
the
not
whole
only to
day,
teach, but the next day, guess what? You have another full schedule that you need to be balanced for.
right,
And
right,
that's part of it. So, okay, well, if you're interested in paranormal studies, investigative studies, we'll put Mary's information on the blog so you can contact her and learn more about her classes, her psychic mediumship, which we're going to segue into because as Mary has not talking about the psychic medium aspect in our previous shows, because Mary is, how many years have you been a friend of Guided Spirit Conversations? It's been a while. 4 years?
yeah, I think it might be
4 or 5?
more than that. I think I
Five
did
years?
one like maybe as much as 7 years ago, and then I think we had a couple-year break or whatever in there, or 3 year and came back. I'm not sure. It's been a while. It's been a
I,
while.
I I know you've been a friend of the show for a long time,
Yeah.
and since it's just been a long time. So we're so happy to have you back talking about this. But the psychic medium piece of it, why now are you starting to promote it? And let's talk about your sessions and what they're about and how they help people, and maybe some stories sprinkled in for uh, for to give people some insight as to maybe something that didn't start well that turned the sitter into, which is the client is the sitter because they're sitting there getting the
Right.
receiving the information, um, and how it turned out for them.
Um,
I
I'm
know I
going to
threw a lot at you.
backtrack. No, just for 1 second, I'm going to say something because I probably should do this just for people listening. By the way, on the college things, real quick, what those classes are, because that's the only way they're kind of going to be able to search it. It's not going to say paranormal studies. So
Okay.
there's one that's ghost and spirit entities, another one that's called paranormal entanglement. That's a little more sciencey. I am going back to an old class I used to do. I hadn't done for a few years, paranormal investigation. And then this fall or summer, I'm starting an intro to parapsychology course as well. So anyway, so I just wanted to throw that out because otherwise they're not going to know, well, what is it, and when are they? Anyway,
Thank
psychic
you for
medium
that.
sessions. Well, thank you for allowing me. For the psychic medium sessions, it's always just a really different experience with each
Yes.
individual, and there's different types of experiences within those experiences. So if I'm doing something, a session online, I put in there 30 to 60 minutes. I don't think I have ever gone less than 60 minutes, an hour on there. And sometimes I will go longer, meaning if we're in the middle of communication here, I have to finish whatever that is. So
Right.
sometimes it will even extend beyond that hour. Um, but now if you go to some of these paranormal conferences that are out there and I'm working at a vendor table speaking or doing a vendor table there, now you're cutting these sessions down to 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard for me because I'm like an hour at least. So we kind of have to change a little bit of how we navigate, get through it. And the one thing that occasionally will still become I don't want to say it's a challenge, but it's awkward is sometimes you are coming up with really personal, it's a very personal
It's very
situation.
personal. It
Yeah.
is.
And, it can be really uncomfortable. And so you have to be very in tuned to your client, to the sitter. You have to be very empathetic to, in general, just from person to person, putting all the rest aside, because this is often people's well-beings. One of the first things that before I was doing public reads, and it was funny, was doing an interview, a live interview of psychic mediums at this conference, not myself. At which point we get to the end and they said, "Hey, do you think?" I said, "Do you think you could just like pick one person, just tell them one person, one thing, something?" And all of them, like they hadn't planned it, but you would have thought they did, kind of turned and looked at me and said, "We think you should do that." And I'm like, because I'm on camera and the people. So I said, "If we get off camera, I'll do it." Well, I'm glad I did that way because it involved me saying some things and then kind of pulling back initially from this woman. And then she came up to me afterwards outside and asked me a question. And at that point, it was like now some very, very disturbing and just bad, just really, sad and everything circumstance that all came through. And I just looked at her and we continued on. It had to do with sexual abuse. And so, you know what I mean? These are, you can get into some very difficult topics for people. So you have to be very careful how it's presented as well on there, and just letting them know that you are there in supporting them through this information. And then sometimes you kind of get the personal information that turns out kind of in a quirky way, kind of for the client, a funny story, which was I had another person who had, we were talking and I went and started to tell her something. And I went, because I had picked up that the grandparents, somebody had an affair and that they almost like got the divorce and, so on and so forth down that thing. So I kind of mentioned it and she's like, during the session, no, nothing. She went and talked to one of her parents and she came back like the next time. She's like, "Oh my gosh, nobody knew this," like one of those kind of things. But she thought it was so cool. Like she got this secret from a families that had passed on, now about it. So it can turn out in a good way as well, in fun way. But I mean,
Have you gotten information about people randomly throughout the course of your day, and you have to say to spirit, "Nope, I'm off the clock," or "Nope, my sign is down," whatever it might be? Because from my education, you don't leave the open sign on 24 hours a day.
right.
You put that open sign on, letting spirit know you can come talk to me now, or "Nope, sorry, eating dinner, taking a shower, and get out of here in my shower."
Right. No, you're absolutely right on that. It's spot on because that was one of the things initially. I think that there was multiple reasons. Some of them were family or some weird idea of religious reasons I had earlier in life about it and so forth. But I didn't, that constant of just being like barrage and trying to bombarded and trying to learn to kind of put up these protections, especially as a paranormal investigator, right? Because you don't know sometimes what you're walking into.
Right.
And, and so you're if you're like super open and here it's something really kind of evil, kind of a thing. And the open sign, yeah, that's for sure. I started it and it got smaller and smaller. First, it was like, all right, we're going to put it into my bedroom I say like because I always think of Casper, the flying ghost, and say my bedroom is a no-fly zone. It's a no-fly zone. That's my place of solace, to recharge and so forth. Initially, I had started it out with the house and then kind of expanded it. The first, I mean, it just sticks with me. I had put this in with, you're kind of like with the boundaries of the bedroom. And at my old home, I had a double door to my bedroom. And there was also a TV and a chair in there, and I kind of had it. So the doors were kind of behind where where the TV was. And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like looking around, let's see, I'm like, what? And it was a friend of mine, not super close, but had made a really big impression on me. Had a sudden death, and it was just really sad. And I just always still remember him very fondly. And he was standing, but he was in the doorway, literally just on the other side of the door. And then it was communicated, but I could also visually see. I'm like, oh
Right.
my gosh, that's so cool. He's like respecting, like, well, this you said not to come in your bedroom, so I'm respecting you. I'm out here, you know. I thought that was kind of cool. So yeah, I do put those boundaries on there. I do know some psychic mediums, and one in particular. Oh my goodness, he is seems to always be on. That would be so tremendously exhausting to me.
It would be. And what's the sense of it? Because here's the thing, the whole Teresa Caputo, Long Island medium, stopping people in stores or at gas stations and say, wait, I've got somebody here who wants to talk to you. I mean, we know that's all planned
Yeah.
out, but have you ever had such a strong, um, somebody was just knocking on your shoulder, like, you've got to say something, even though it was outside what you would normally do. Have you had those experiences where you end up sharing?
I am very big on the privacy because I feel it for myself, those boundaries for other people. I could not do like what you were saying, Teresa. I couldn't just keep walking up to people like that. And here's the thing, it's not always like that on. You kind of, if you want to give your attention to that, something will come in. But like this friend, one of the reasons I will say this up front, when he's always on, we're like in a restaurant and he turns to nobody that anybody else can see. And it's like, yeah, well, no, yeah, of course I will do. I'm like, dude, you look like you're crazy to other people, right? Don't do that. But he does. But anyway, I'm going to say, try to get these down. There's two. Um, it's changed, and it was one of the first ones. Is what really, this is years ago, prompted me to get into doing it and address some of the extended family concerns about the religious aspects of it, like, oh, it's all evil, it's a trick from, you're being tricked by the
Right.
devil, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So I'm in a hospital chapel, and a family member was having surgery, and I tend to stop in the chapels, and it's just a nice kind of, place. So I'm praying, and then there was a woman in there, and she had her coat on and her back was to me, and she had gone from like one statue to another statue in the front. And as I'm praying, I look up and I kind of hear her sniffling. She's apparently crying. At least it sounds that way. And I was like, oh, like, I'm so like, what's going on? Feel kind of bad for whatever, she's going through. And then it just all hit me. This is going to sound stranger than like psychic medium, right? But I don't know at that point where it came from, but I really felt like that God wanted me to say something. And I was internally fighting this because I'm like, I can't just, like, this lady's already upset, right?
Right.
She's crying in an emotional state or something. I can't just walk up to her. And then looked and I'm like, all right, now I feel like I'm saying no to God, that
Right.
kind of feeling is okay. So as she passes to go out the door, I did stand up and I said, and this is really one of a handful of times ever in my life I've done this. And I said, I'm sorry to, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you. just, sometimes, and I know it was like they just guided me on what to say, because like, how do you even start it? Right. And I said,
Right.
I just wanted you to know that sometimes God works through other people. And I just need to let you know that it's okay. You're going to make it. Now, I don't know what this even means.
Right.
This woman, to this day, it still makes me so emotional. She just started sobbing. And I, and she had a very heavy Polish accent. And I could see now under her coat, she was an orderly. She worked at the hospital.
Oh.
She proceeded to tell me that her mother back in Poland was dying, and she was just leaving the hospital, going out that door to head to the airport to try to get home. And she had been, it still makes me emotional. She had been praying, please God, let me make it in time before she dies. So now I knew what I need to tell you. It's okay. You're going to make it.
Wow.
That's what, and she knew immediately. That's why she started sobbing. It literally answered her prayer. And that was the moment when I said, you can't tell me this is wrong. This is not wrong. This is, and then I proceeded forward from there. Most recently, in a very light sense, I'm in the dentist chair. I've had this happen before in another doctor's office too. And that was weird. That was one of my other handful of times where I just then sat up, and for like 20 minutes afterwards, she just kept asking questions. And we just started talking about her deceased grandfather, because she was just floored, like the specifics that were coming through, I guess. But recently I was at the dentist, and the girl who's working on me, she seems sort of younger, and she finally, and I was sitting there in between, she was doing cleaning, and I said, are you a mom? And I tend to put it as a question and not freak people out. You know
Right.
what I mean? And she just sort of stopped, and she said, why? And I said, well, I just can sense. I go, you're going to be a really good mom. And she said, and then she kind of leans in and whispered, because nobody else in the office knew. She
She was
says,
pregnant.
she goes, yeah. She goes, I'm 8 weeks pregnant. And I said, well, you're going to be a really good mom, kind of
What a
thing.
great message.
So that's just kind of a lighter fun versus something, how meaningful it is. But literally, I think I could probably, that's a hand on one hand of where I've just kind of said something out to somebody. Because like, I don't believe it's same thing. Like when you get I'll send you some healing light and type of thing. You should not just send that to somebody or try to psychically read them without their permission. That's how
Right.
I just kind of feel about it. It's a permission based type of thing.
And it truly is, but it can be so healing. Going to a psychic medium could be so healing, in terms of if you need to closure from somebody. A lot of times when people transit, they die. There's a lot of things unsaid. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you go to a psychic medium, you can get the closure you need from the individual that you weren't able to before. And that is so healing for another individual.
Right. It really
It,
is.
and it helps people on their journey to self love
Yeah.
because of the healing that comes in. Then they could start, forgiving themselves, forgiving the other person, and stepping into more loving of themselves, especially if the message from the other side had to do with that.
Yeah. Another aspect that I I guess is not as common out there, um, is I'm a medical intuitive.
Oh,
And so I originally was having it just come to me information. And then I just decided, I'm gonna, the same thing, some things happen that were like, whoa, okay, I think I need to start doing this like regularly, you know? Um, I had a woman, I mean, there's a few of these stories, but one was a client online. She doesn't go to the doctor. Just one of those. She does not go. She was having some problems the whole time, this is what's interesting too. The whole time as I'm talking about this to her, she's not really acknowledging it. And I'm like, well, just kind of hang on to that. Like, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on here. But she's like, nothing. I'm like getting almost nothing out of her. After the session, she emailed me. And then she emailed me again. And she said, it just kind of freaked me out. She says, I literally have not told anyone that. And what are the chances of this happening? It scared, which was a good thing. It scared her enough that she went and she made an appointment and got an appointment with the doctor like the next day or in 2 days or something, and went through this. And after the second email, found out it was
What
pretty
you said it
serious.
was.
Yeah. And that the doctor told her, this is treatable, but it's a good thing you came in now, because otherwise you would have been in big trouble. And she was just like, wow. And so that was like a wow for me as well, and then I started incorporating it. So a lot of times I'll do a scan and start the session. I think medically intuitive, but also it helps energy wise to tune into the person
Oh, yes.
and their energy field. But the thing is that I don't think everybody is going to be saved, so to say.
But they're not meant to be.
Exactly. I'm getting the message that they're meant to receive. And if I'm not telling you and something terrible happens, as horrible as this is going to sound, this was just part of what your journey you needed to go through. But
Right.
if it was because you're just being a knucklehead, I'm going to say something like that, like I don't want to go to doctors. I hate doctors, come on. We got a lot more planned for you to do here in this life. We need you to take care of this.
Right.
I had a woman, now it's about 4 years ago. I was at the Michigan Paracon in Upper, and they did this reading, and it was actually a tandem reading, but I kind of zoned in, and I had talked about her relative, her father-in-law, and some issues that were there, and some other stuff. I tend to not remember what I tell people. I think for me, I think it's because I'm just the receiver, it's coming in and out.
Right.
It's not my thoughts.
Right.
So I saw her 3 years later, a year ago now. And I was like, oh my God, I remembered her, and I was like, yeah. And I'm remembering the story about the relative. This is all I remember. And she says, Mary, you have no idea. And I was kind of in, people, she came back and she sat and but first she's over the table and she said, you told me I had a mass. And isn't it weird? I'm literally sitting there like, I did, like I don't remember. And she's like, blah, blah, blah. And she says, I don't go, she was another one. I don't go to doctors. But it scared me enough that I went, and she said, you literally saved my life, because if I had not gone, the stage that what would have happened is it would have not been something that would have been treatable and and remissionable.
Right.
When you hear something like that, you feel honored to be that conduit to pass that message along. And then as a person, you feel like, I am so grateful that I can do this for other people, be of use.
Yes.
It makes you feel good in that way. So now every session and when I do my Zooms, I will do the medical intuitive first. And sometimes it's not much, and sometimes it's something, so I'm grateful to have added that into the mix. I never thought I would be doing it. Somebody had told me, another psychic medium said, I see, this was early on. He goes, I see you as a medical intuitive. What? And I was kind of like, and then here, okay.
And here you are.
Yep.
Mary, we have to take a pause real quick. It's charity shout out time. And as you know, it's time to share one of your favorite charities that are near and dear to your heart to bring it to light for the listeners. And hopefully somebody else will resonate with it and want to help and in whatever capacity. So yours is the American Heart Association. Let's talk about why that's a passion and how people can help.
Because I have a family member that's a child we were all praying to be born. And immediately after she was born, she had a pacemaker put in.
Oh.
And she still has one, and she's 9 now. She's gone through a couple surgeries. The problem with the infants and pacemaker is it was so hard putting so much stress on the actual heart itself in a different way that it created her to be in heart failure. But with medication and time and aging, she actually got better. She's not on medication for it now at all. So it's plus my mom and just a lot of different family members, but particularly because this is a child and we don't tend to think of the Heart Association in children.
Yes.
And every year we do a walk, extended family and friends, and the amount of kids that are there, you would probably be surprised. So this is why the American Heart Association.
I think it's brilliant. And so many people have issues with their heart and they're walking around not knowing it.
Yeah.
And, and things that could be, again, avoidable if you go to the doctor and let them treat you can extend your life. But if you don't go to the doctor and there's something wrong with it, you're definitely making your own self-fulfilled prophecy.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't, for me, I have a difficult time with that. And I guess it's that their fear is greater than their common sense,
Yeah.
of why they don't go to the doctor or why they don't take care of certain things. Um, I think for those of us that do go, it can seem kind of frustrating. It's like, just go, just get it checked,
Right.
But you have to understand and why people do what they do.
And it's
Respect
also
it.
the path that they're choosing for themselves. And
Right.
that's a chosen path, the free will path, and
Right.
not the other kind. So I get it. It's amazing what can be done if you go to the doctor,
Yeah.
or if
And
somebody
don't,
says something to you, take heed to what they're sharing.
and
If
here's
they
somebody that you would think of like either metaphysically or holistically, like, oh, no, no, go to the doctor.
right,
Even if you are energy healer in one way, form or another, Reiki or other, that's to help you repair your energy in healing. It's not magic.
right,
It's not like maybe what somebody might call miracle constantly being performed. You have to have that common sense to combine science and the metaphysical or science and holistic approaches together. And then you can have probably more success.
I would agree with that. It's powerful. Let's talk about Halloween. Why do we celebrate Halloween?
Why? I don't know. Why do we anymore? It's changed, right?
It has.
It really has. It's like just a big, which is okay because I think it's fun. I've always enjoyed it. The big party costume scene. And just for years, I've always enjoyed that. But as far as the real sense of it, I really find it interesting that people I don't always connect the two, but it's like you have Halloween or Salim and combined with the next being All Saints Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you get with All Saints Day. And the reason is like you get this very paganistic holiday that everybody jumps on, and then the same people are celebrating All
Yeah.
Saints
All
Day.
the saints. Well, sinners and saints alike live together in the world.
Yeah. And then is the veil really thinner? Because that's going to be possibly a follow-up question, because a lot of people ask that. I don't, yes, it is. And the reason is may not be what people think. It's not that that day, we chose that day, 1,000 years, it just keep going. It's kind of gravitated. Now it's kind of stuck on our calendar day as that day. But with that being said, it's because you have so many people, uh, average, people and psychic medium people and so on and so forth, all focusing their energies, trying to often have seances that day or other types of contact. Um, Maybe somebody's doing Ouija, maybe, whatever it is. It's all happening pretty much within the same 24-hour period. And it starts leading up to it, actually, right? We know, those of us in the field,
Yeah.
we know how busy we get during like October. So it's that collective consciousness, that collective energy and focus that helps manifest, I think, to be able to reach, as they say, to the other side or beyond the veil more easily.
Well, it's so funny. I don't know if you heard any of my announcement this morning, but I talked about the strife in the world, and let's come together, because together we can become a beacon, focusing our energy, our light, our love to where we're pointing it, right? And
Yeah.
that's sort of what you're saying, is that people collectively want to sort of bring up those on the other side. And how does that happen? It's because collectively you're building that energy to sort of like shake the planet, get them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we as human beings, we really just don't give ourselves enough credit, and some of it is just, most people are just not knowledgeable enough. They just, haven't learned it. They sorry about that.
That's okay.
This
There's a
cramp.
voice from the other side.
It's a
The
voice from the other
other
side.
side of the
Exactly.
phone, but the other side.
I have actually gotten that happen. With it, is our technology changes, the other side's way of communicating
Can change too.
changes too. And I've had it happen with text.
Mary, I'm going to stop you. We've got only a couple of short minutes, and I want to give you the platform. I want to give you the mic, so to speak, to talk about anything you'd like to talk about. Let the audience know anything you're promoting, anything you want to get in more detail of. Floor is
Um,
yours. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I think at this point, just really the kind of two things would be my two passions, the teaching and the paranormal studies. I do like speaking in front of people. I don't have anything booked right now. And the psychic mediumship. I really want to expand that beyond what I'm doing. And the reason for that is because I want to reach more people. You know,
Do you,
you go ahead.
Sarah, do you do galleries? Do gallery readings as well? Because
I
we should let
don't.
people know about that.
I don't.
If you
And you want to
do.
know, I have done them. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the future. And the reason for this goes back to something we mentioned earlier. At a gallery reading, you have somebody sitting up in front of you, and now you find out something like you have a mass, or, I'm not saying this is, I would say this, but, something, your husband's cheating on you or something, kind of a
Right.
thing. And you go, so do you immediately edit yourself? You have to edit yourself. Now you are not
Yes.
being the tool you're supposed to do in giving these messages. But you don't want to bring this up in a group setting with a bunch of other people. And I personally, as the psychic medium, feel a little uncomfortable, and feel uncomfortable in a respect for other people's privacy, because maybe you don't want, you're sitting next to somebody and they don't know that you've got a bum knee or whatever is going to pop up,
Right.
And so I tend to not be super fond of galleries. Doesn't mean they're not going to happen in the future, but I prefer kind of the one-on-one.
So I guess we have to lead everybody to go to your website, which will be in the blog notes, so that you could, or the episode notes, so that you will then be able to know what Mary's up to. And Mary, your mediummarymarshall.com. It's easy.
Yeah.
Isn't that your
Yeah,
website? Or is it
that goes to it, mediummarymarshall.com. If you want to look at the classes, you go to the paranormalmd.com. But quite honestly, if you go to the paranormalmd.com, you can always tab over to the mediumship page. So
so much
all
easier?
Yeah.
Mary, I can't believe time is up. It goes so quickly with you every single time. And I so adore you as well. And thank you so much for taking time to share once again with our audience.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. And I just love your platform. So thank you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to thank Bridget, as always, my right hand, my left hand, my tech wizard. So grateful for you and what you do for me. I want to thank you, the listening audience, for taking time out of your day, out of your life, to be a part of the show so that you can. Oh, I'm sorry, Bree. There was a person by the name of Bree Womack, and she wanted to know if you could get in touch with her dad. Sorry, did not see the chat, did not see that, but reach out to Mary and maybe you two can figure something else out. But thank you for taking time out of your life, out of your day. This show is created for you, and we want to bring you content that is important for you, for your path. So thank you. Next week, my guest is Tracy Ash, who is the director of Soul School and the Habu Hotel Eco Lodge. So tune in next week. So I will be talking to Tracy Ash. You can check her out. I believe her website is Tracy with an E, ash.com. Also, again, let's band together, sending prayers to those who need it, because so much is going on in this world. I also want to show you my book, My Fucking Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path. Again, I wrote this with you in mind because I knew I was not the only one going through a dysfunctional childhood into a dysfunctional adulthood until I stepped down my path and started healing. In the back of the book are tips, tools, and techniques to help you on your path, not only to heal, but to gain self-love. So check it out on my website, Marla Goldberrg with 2Rs.com, or on Amazon. So thank you for that. As I leave you, as always, I'm sending you love, blessings, and gratitude. Know how grateful I am that you're in my life in whatever capacity you're in it. For not only are you my student, you are my teacher. And not only am I a teacher, I am a student. So thank you. And I'm going to say these 3 little words to you. I love you. You are loved, not just by me, not just by your family, friends, colleagues, your community, but you have a plethora of beings on the other side of the veil who are just waiting for you to ask for help. Tell them what you need, want, and desire, because they don't have the free will to just do it on their own. And then let them go out and conspire on your behalf. The next part is be open. Be open to how the message comes to you. Mary just told you stories about how things came in a very esoteric way. It wasn't like me asking her a question, she answering. It came in a different way, but it was correct. So know that you have to be open to how the message comes. And the second part of it is if it doesn't come in a timely manner in your time frame, you might want to look inside and see if you need to shift something. It's almost like moving a boulder out of the way so the flow can come to you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you next week. Stay well, stay healthy, and enjoy your airiness on Halloween. Take care.